what I really ended up learning was it wasn't like anything technical. I was playing just to understand how to speak better it, and how to put together better sentences and communicate. It didn't have anything to do with like, I need to shed so I can be the most
Right.
Because that's ego-based too.
Yeah, it's not the point.
The point was kind of releasing that.
Right.
And getting rid of that space, because a lot of it was me trying to prove myself at first. Like, I need them to know I'm killing. And at the end of the day, you don't. You need to serve the music.
Yeah.
And it will speak for itself.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Why Music Matters podcast. I'm your host, music journalist and musician Jeff Myers. Throughout my life in and around music, I've often asked myself the question, why does music matter? This podcast will attempt to answer that question with the help of musicians, members of the music industry, and music lovers like you. Today on Why Music Matters, I get to spend some time with one of my favorite musicians, with the added bonus that he happens to be my son. Declan Miers is a bassist, producer, composer, and guitarist who is currently on the road with alternative R&B superstar SZA. He's performed and recorded with a host of neo-soul, R&B, pop, and jazz artists, including Mac Ayres, Renee Rapp, Brass Tracks, Cautious Clay, Cisco Swank, Coye, Mikki Howard, Ava Max, and Alex Isley. But in my eyes, he's still that little kid who fell in love with music when he was still crawling around on the floor in front of the stereo. He's still my longtime concert buddy, and the kid who left home at 16 to attend the Berklee College of Music on a scholarship, and then headed out into the world to pursue his musical dreams. Declan was raised to speak his mind, and he does so here, in a conversation that touches on the mentorship he received from the Buffalo gospel, jazz, rock, and funk music communities, the life of a young touring musician, and the role that music can play in teaching us all how to speak less and listen more. Welcome to Why Music Matters, Declan Miers. Let's have some fun. Welcome to Why Music Matters, Declan Miers.
Hey.
How are you?
What's happening? I'm good.
Welcome back to Buffalo, where your musical journey started.
Yeah.
Where we had a large community of musicians and friends who helped.
Yeah.
a lot of this happened for you.
Absolutely.
But with this podcast, it's called Why Music Matters.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to get at not so much like your resume as why music matters to you, why you think it matters in general, and what you think music might have to offer to connect us on a deeper level.
Yeah.
This is stuff we've always talked about, right? So
yeah, honestly, it's like we're in the backyard. No, absolutely. So I guess for a little bit of background, like coming from here.
Yeah.
And
here being Buffalo, New York.
Yeah. Thanks for clarification. It was always a connecting point I was always around people twice, 3 times, 4 times my age, all your friends and everything, since I was little. And normally those people don't have a lot to talk about with each other, when you're 8 and you're talking to somebody that's 35, they just are like, you're a kid and who cares, just exist, eat, and don't die. But, it was cool because I could offer something and have a conversation with somebody and learn, like, you can get a more direct impact and people are more surprised and they're more interested when you know something about what they know about,
right.
know? Rather than if I was just talking about something they had no idea what I was talking about, they'd be bored. I know if I talk to a little kid and they're talking about Roblox or
right.
Minecraft, I literally could care less. So if I'm talking about Iron Maiden, they're like, Rush, whatever, you know what I mean? So there was always that ability to connect people through things they care about, right? And people care about art and they care about things that touch them emotionally, like very deeply. And that connecting point kind of opens worlds, especially when you're young.
Yeah.
And Yeah, and then when we get to playing and we're playing at the bars and we're playing at the clubs and all that, where I'm 10 and I'm watching people just throwing back shots of tequila and I'm just trying to play, all that stuff, which is it was an ability to learn quickly, like how music is able to just bring these people together. People that shouldn't be together, people that wouldn't be together. That was the point of the gig last night, or the other night too. Was that
the gig at Larkinville? You brought. We'll talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
But on background, So, even being young, we had this common ground, all of us, and you weren't treated like a kid. You were treated like your opinion was valid.
Yeah, it's very different than how other people say they were raised. And I'm very grateful for that too. There was a nice balance between like me being able to like kind of explore and figure out what I like, and also still like, have kind of rules. My mom was the one that was setting the rules. My dad was the one that was giving me the instruments, telling me to do whatever I want. So it was a nice balance between the two of them. But a lot of other people, they're kind of given a lot of strict boundaries as to who they need to be, what they need to do, what needs to be accomplished. And all of that is kind of based on like, a lot of Western education and stuff like that, where everything is, work hard, do good, be this, you know what I mean? And not, a lot of it isn't set up to explore your passions or explore anything that's outside of the box that will make sure that you're good working at the factory and all that good stuff, That's why, I feel like you see a lot more budget, especially in these more wealthy public school systems, going towards sports, going towards academics that are pushing towards, inside the box thinking. Because that's what it's trained for. You know what I mean? And outside the box thinking, even the music program is like, okay, you can play orchestra, and that's still written music. That's still do this at this time.
Some of which is good because you learn how to be part of something bigger than yourself.
Absolutely. I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
No.
I'm just saying it's not balanced. If folks aren't taught to really use their critical thinking skills and taught to use their improvisations and like pushed into the spotlight to just try things and mess up and still work from that. And that's why we get, a lot of people that are stuck inside this, and then they're 45 and wondering why they're depressed.
Valid, son. Valid.
So I got lucky to be in the spaces where that was pushed. Where I was allowed to make a lot of mistakes and be around a lot of people that pushed for like that critical thinking.
So work hard, do good, but be you.
Balance.
Be you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not be this.
And that was from my educators too.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. From all the music teachers or even my teachers at school and all that stuff. Like, I was very close with them. That's why I like creating relationships with them as much as other kids and stuff like that. I was trying to pick their brains as to why everything worked the way it did, and also like try to get that push from them too.
Can we talk a little bit about, most recently, you just came off a European tour with SZA. I know you were all over the place. 5 weeks. I don't remember how many cities. Many though.
Yeah. It was a fantastic time. I mean, that's the best part about touring, and I've been on the road with a few artists this year. Is not. I mean, the shows are great. That all that stuff is fun. I like to play music, but I'm mostly there to do a job and just execute. So I feel good about that. I know I can execute when I need to. But to experience like different cultures in the world is, and then find and meet new people and have develop friendships with people that you would never have met before. Like I was in London, I met a girl from named Kristen from South Africa. She was just like selling like this beauty supply situation where she was selling like really, really nice skincare products. She's like, come try this salt that will make your hands feel really soft. And a group of us were like, okay, we'll go do that. And she ended up being like one of the coolest people. So she came to a couple shows. We hung out. Like, she's a really, really sweet human being. that could just talk about life with or whatever. And there's multiple instances of that. I was walking around Scotland and found these kids playing jazz, these college kids, and they were super cool, and we ended up hanging out, and stuff like that you wouldn't necessarily experience. So to get paid to do that is cool.
It is cool.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if during that too, you can see, well, music brought you there, right? I mean, that's one of its gifts if you're able to do it at this point. It's a connecting point.
Yeah.
But in these, really pretty different cultures, you were in Germany or you were in Switzerland or you've been to Ghana.
Yeah, that was crazy.
I'm interested in that point where everyone is, at the shows in particular, everyone is feeling that at the show, right? Even though they're radically different people, and they're coming from different cultures. But I'm interested in the point where music becomes this celebration of our commonality instead of our division. And I feel like you've had a, kind of a front row seat to that.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think there was something that we did that festival. I've done Global Citizen a few times,
yes.
And I think that's a really, really obvious way of looking at it, where you have this festival where it's 24 hours and they have it's happening in different cities on the same day at the same time. Yeah. But it's because of the time difference streamed out throughout 24 hours, right? Yeah. So I did it in 2021 with Coye and Hallie in LA, and that was at the Greek Theater. It was the first one post-COVID, I think.
Yes.
And we have a lineup. It's us. Stevie Wonder played right before us. It was then Demi Lovato was on it. It was a really wide range of folks, right?
Yeah.
I think Adam Lambert did it. I feel like Zeri might have been on that too. Shout out Zeri, Buffalo.
Yeah, Zeri Appleby.
And but at the same time, in New York, you have Coldplay and Billie Eilish, and then in France, you Doja Cat and whatever, right? The whole point of it is global art and connection at the same time. To be able to see and hear all that with all these people gathered at one place, you can feel the energy of that. And I'm sure, between LA, New York, and Paris, and wherever else it was going on at the same time, those mass movements of people just coming together to experience something that emotionally touches them.
Yeah.
It has a great impact on being able to look around and see a bunch of other people enjoying the same thing you are, or not if somebody's doing terribly.
You're right.
That's a nice camaraderie too. It's wow, the weekend sucks or whatever. He doesn't, but it's just an example. I think that was a really cool experience to be part of. And then we did it. I did it the next year with SZA in Accra in Ghana. It was very, very freeing. It's probably the most emotional I've been during a show because you could just feel the energy of that.
Yeah.
We were watching Thames, and Thames opened with No Woman, No Cry.
Yeah.
And
in Ghana.
And it was absolutely beautiful. And very freeing, and I'll probably never have another experience like that, and I was very grateful to be there for that. Those moments are what we do it for, there's it's cool to, you don't go into music for money. Anybody will tell you that unless you're really trying to be one of these pop stars, but everything that comes with that is hell. I've seen it firsthand.
Right.
But it makes kind of all the nonsense you deal with on the day-to-day that everyone tries to make it difficult. Those are the moments that we kind of do it for, those connections that we can make. That's the main thing, honestly.
Yeah. Well, going back a little bit to, another example of why music matters and a life in music can teach so much. Even for people who aren't musicians, who are just experiencing music and welcoming it into their lives in a meaningful way, not as wallpaper or background, but as a way that you're finding somewhat about what's in here, who you are. But tell me if I'm wrong, but, my observation, and Mom would probably agree, was we really watched you find your tribe young. Going to Academy of Performing Arts here.
Yeah.
And then talk about that a little bit, about how that process of fine-tuning and making sure you were in places where what you thought should happen could possibly happen. And then meeting people at Berklee who are now, the people you just brought back to Buffalo to perform with you.
Mm-hmm.
I really felt the significance of the bonding between all of you as musicians and friends. And that's, it's pretty heavy.
Yeah.
In a positive way.
The main thing with, especially if you're picking a band or like trying to do something that might be a stressful experience, because a lot of what goes into
making something happen
is a stressful experience. The main thing is like, are these people I want to do this with, go to war with, be friends with, all that stuff. So my friendships with all these people are deeper than a musical connection. At the end of the day, we can make great music together, but if you're not a person I want to spend time with, it doesn't. You could be Charlie fucking Parker. It doesn't matter. Yeah. You know what I mean? And you'll find that a lot. There's a lot of incredible musicians out there that people are like, they're an asshole. No. And they don't get gigs just because of that alone. Like, especially out in the industry out west and everything, like, it's a friendships-based industry.
Yeah.
People can play at the end of the day. You can make it work. You can put stuff in the pre-record. As long as they look good enough, you can throw anything out there. But are you somebody that you want to tour with, share a bus with, be around all the time? Right? So that was kind of the first like thing I learned from even growing up here.
Yeah.
You experience it out there, but I was prepared for that. And being in Buffalo and playing with legendary older heads, no offense to who I'm speaking to, that kind of showed me the ropes of like what to do and sometimes what not to do.
Yeah.
Just through the actions and like dealing with everything, whether it's, that's stuff with being on time, which I'm not the best at, but, I'm still trying. Or, just being a good time.
Yeah.
And like listening more than you speak musically, literally. All that was taught through my musical education here and just life education at the same time. Those two things usually are hand in hand. If you have good teachers, like you're able to translate that really well. Because at the end of the day, when we play, like that's all we're talking. We're just talking about life.
Right. With each other.
Yeah. It's just a different language. I might not understand French, but they do.
Mm-hmm.
You can understand these sounds because we all do. If you can invoke an emotion, doesn't matter what genre it is or whatever. Everybody's got their preferences and all that. I get it, but we're just trying to make good. If you make good music, it's gonna make somebody feel something.
Yeah.
So that's all it is. It's just being able to speak through that and have communication and all that good stuff.
I like the way you put that, because I feel like those lessons that you learn on the bandstand, so to speak, are applicable to how you live your life off the bandstand.
100%.
And you've spent a lot of time in improvisation-based music too. It's not all you do, but it's partly what you do.
You can tell when you're playing in a band who is gonna stay in their marriage or get divorced by how they play. You know what I mean?
I do.
There's a real give and take to this shit.
Yeah.
And if you are taking in the middle of a song, I know you taking at home or with your loved ones or with your family, or it's a lot of selfish energy. How you carry yourself in that is exactly how you carry yourself in your day to day. It's all a mindset.
Yeah.
We all know our scales and all that. You
Right.
You can study that up as much as you want to, but you can tell when someone's like trying to be like very thoughtful and very intentional with what they're doing versus like when they're just in their own world, or when they're in their head. If there's a lack of confidence, you can tell a lot about a person by how they play and how they are.
Yeah, it's definitely been my experience too, and
yeah.
And even watching the different things that you've done, I've seen it. You just know, because one of the things that music can definitely teach us is the proper place for the ego.
Yeah.
Right? To approach life and your fellow humans with humility.
Yeah, that's good.
And some decency, And I really felt like your time when you went to Berklee in Boston was a real condensed like learning that kind of stuff very quickly, right? Like how to hang.
Yeah, that was probably the toughest time for me
Yeah.
in music, honestly. Tougher than like, I mean, COVID was tough for me career-wise and everything, but at the end of the day, I had family, I had a safe space. I could actually shed and be in my own place too. Like, that was actually more helpful in that sense, not to make light of it. But
no.
Berklee was probably the toughest for me. I was only there for a year, but in that year, like,
it was
very condensed.
It's almost 2, was it? A year and a half?
Yeah. I mean, the last half I was like on the road.
You were partly on the road already.
So I barely counted. But yeah, it was very intense is the word, because it's a condensed space with a lot of people, a lot of information hurling at you all at once. We're not sleeping because everybody wants to play, but also needs to get these stupid projects done and write these papers that mean nothing. And you know, so most of the time we're just sharing projects with each other to get through it anyways. And then on top of that, like you're trying to learn and all this from all these people from all these different places, you know,
all over the world,
learning a lot. Yeah, exactly. Like, you know, friends from Germany, friends from Japan, friends from Memphis, and you're getting a lot of that information all at the same time.
Yeah.
And you're young, you know, I was 16 or 17 when I got there. So it was a lot at the same time. And then people also have opinions, right? And when I came in there, I wasn't necessarily, like, I had a lot to learn very quickly. I was young, I had a lot of chops and all that kind of stuff, but a lot of the times growing up, I was able to get away with kind of like, you know, relying on the ability to kind of just improv my way through situations.
Right.
But a lot of that shit don't cut it over there, because everybody knows what you're doing because everybody's trained in that.
They've all done it too.
Everybody's ears are like, no.
Yeah.
So it was that, and I had a few people take me, like a few other students who were like the upperclassmen and stuff, kind of like take me under the wing because they saw that I had potential, but that I needed to study certain things, unlearn certain things to learn other stuff, like musically, you know, where to take spaces, how to approach certain types of music, where like certain things to study, all that, you know. So it was really, and I at first, like, my ego was definitely hurt, like, why aren't people liking what I play? Like, what's going on? Because, you know, most of the time people are just blowing smoke up your ass. Oh, you sounded great. Oh, you know, blah, 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 blah. And you get away with that for so long. And then when people look you in the mirror and like, this is whack.
Yeah.
This needs to change. You know, that was the first time I've been kind of faced with like that honest criticism. And it was, I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
But it was difficult. You know, it was an ego blow at first. And then you have to take a step back and, okay, well, how do I maneuver? How do I adjust in this? And yeah, it was a lot of shedding, a lot of like taking apart different music and just like recording myself, listening back, being honest with myself. This is off, da da da, and just locking myself in a space and just playing for 6-7 hours or whatever. And what I really ended up learning was it wasn't like anything technical. I was playing just to understand how to speak better. And how to put together better sentences and communicate. It didn't have anything to do with like, I need to shed so I can be the most blah, blah, blah,
right,
because that's ego based too.
Yeah, it's not the point.
The point was kind of releasing that,
right,
and getting rid of that space, because a lot of it was me trying to prove myself at first. Like, I need them to know I'm killing. And at the end of the day, you don't. You need to serve the music.
Yeah.
And it will speak for itself.
Well said. And I think the you know, the metaphorical, you know, connotations of what you're saying are pretty obvious, right? Learning to get out of your own way.
Yeah.
Subverting ego, thinking about how you can make a valid contribution to something bigger than yourself.
Yeah.
And not making it all about you. No,
just be honest with, if you're honest with yourself and you're able to like to give yourself love and be realistic about everything and just put your best foot forward, whether you succeed or fail.
You have integrity, though. Yeah.
you'll always be able to fall back on that. And even if it don't work out now, it's going to work out in 6 months or a
That's
year
right.
or whatever. You just have to kind of keep going with it. Cause it took me a while to get my footing together, you know? I know people are like, oh, you're so young and doing, it was still years of me like figuring it out, you know, I moved to LA when I was 18 or 19 to now. There was 2.5 years, I mean, COVID, but there was 2.5, also 3 years in there where I didn't do any gigs for like a year at a time.
I know.
The COVID thing. And then also there wasn't connection
there. Wasn't work, yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, and I realized I was in LA at 19. I couldn't go to any clubs. I couldn't meet anybody. I was too young in that sense. And I wasn't being connected necessarily with people that were going to kind of push me to like a certain place, you know? Because there's other people that can go, but they have the connections they need to like start working in studios or stuff like that. And people see their talent like, oh, yeah, we got to do this, that's.
Right.
So I didn't really have that space to do that. So it was tough.
Yeah.
It was like definitely a few years of just like kind of like being very like, it's gonna work out.
Yes.
You just stick to it. And that wouldn't have been possible if I didn't have such a strong support at home and wasn't raised to think like that way, where you can have a secure attachment style with other people and a secure attachment style with yourself. You know what I mean? And yeah, raised by you, raised by mom, but also raised by like the city.
Yeah.
And what that culture is.
Right, that connection between music and community is huge.
So strong.
It's huge here, you know, often undervalued. It's not just huge here. But now, you know, you have friends from New Orleans, you have friends from Philly, you have friends from all over the country.
I mean, that band,
now.
That band we had the other day was literally that. And they saw how strong that community is. Like everyone.
They felt it when they were here.
Yeah, everybody came leaving that experience like very, very impressed with that, which I think was the coolest part for me. And the people that were here were impressed with what we could bring together, which was the whole point. You know, of course, it wasn't going to go perfectly or anything. We, you know, are all in the middle of other tours and had a few days to make it work, but kind of got a sneak peek of like what's out there for the people here. And they got to take a break from all the other nonsense,
the craziness,
and see what a good, strong community is.
Yeah.
And that, I think, was a really cool, like, kind of melting pot of that.
It was beautiful, and I think all of us on the other side of the stage felt that, you know, pretty strongly. Well, speaking of, you know, 6 months or a year, you know, projecting out, what's next for you? You're not going to be here with us in Buffalo too long.
No.
Back to it.
I need to go home and see my dog.
I know.
Sit on the couch. That's
a big plan.
That's the big plan for the at least immediate month or so. I'm doing some a few spot dates and stuff over the next month. There's an artist named Cisco Swank that I've worked a lot with, who's like kind of on the up and up from New York. Just got a really cool New York Times piece written about him, and he's working with some amazing people.
He's incredible.
Yeah, an incredible multi-instrumentalist from Brooklyn. He's got a few different bands across the country or whatever, so we're doing the West Coast stuff with him. I'm pretty sure it's me and a drummer named Luke Titus from Chicago is also amazing. And another pianist named Jonathan Huber. Everybody's sick. And I think Morgan's doing that too. Morgan Burris from Butcher Brown. Yeah. So it's a really cool collection. So I think we're gonna do like 2 shows, LA and San Francisco, with him. More stuff. I know SZA going out again, so I'll be out with them, I'm sure. And I mean, that's like kind of the immediate future. Kind of also trying to dig into making sure I'm expressing myself too, recording.
Yeah.
Like trying to enjoy that, but also just like want to go for hikes and like eat. Kind of just want to eat and like buy clothes and get massages. That's kind of like the main thing. Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you spending time here and talking about this. And you know, sharing your experiences, and I think it's proof that, you know, music matters. I mean, it certainly has had a big effect on your life.
Yeah.
Our family.
I'm about to say, on yours, you've been here since what, early 90s?
I moved here in 1990,
Yeah, and it's been the whole time, like whether it was playing or writing or whatever, you have such a huge imprint on this community. Like we can't go anywhere without a bunch of people. Hey Jeff, let's talk about this. Let's talk about that. But that is cool connection in itself, you know. So I enjoy, even when it's annoying, I enjoy seeing that. And also proud of you for being able to pivot. A lot of people are scared to pivot, especially in older age. So it was really cool to be able to see that, like, you're never stuck in anything, you know. Everybody loves having health insurance and all that, but like, come on, let's live life, like,
yeah,
you know.
Well, interestingly, it's hopefully something that I and your mother taught you growing up, and it's something that you taught me later when I needed it.
Yeah,
you know.
No, but yeah, that was the coolest part about our family, I think, is that we would just like kind of learn from each other. I'd come home, show you something. You always show me something. Oh, this, that. You taking me that 1 month, you saw Pat Metheny Unity Group, Esperanza Spalding, and Robert Glasper's Black Radio Tour. And it just changed everything.
Yeah.
Like absolutely everything in connection with being and playing with Crit, my best friend Nate, and Jackson, don't get mad. Bringing me to church where I meet Kevin Camp and Daniel Powell and like all these, Rod Bonner, like incredible local talent that we're going out and playing to, you know, and Jared Tinkham and Stu Weissman and Nelson, who's your old friend, my bad.
Jerry Livingston.
Yeah, of course. I mean, Jerry, I never took a lesson from Jerry, but every time I spoke to him was a lesson in itself. Right. You know what I mean? Like that was the lesson, and I would pay for that a million times over. And so honored to have known him. Karen Saxon, like I've had so many like educators here. There's so many brilliant educators here, in music, outside of music. I learned a lot from all my teachers. So yeah, it comes from that, and being able to learn from and speak to and have mutual respect.
Yeah,
everything meant everything. So I'm really grateful, absolutely grateful for it.
Well, Declan, sit here and do this all day. We've done that many times, haven't we?
Until 6 a.m. All that.
We will again.
Me and Mom arguing about what's better. About anything music related. We can sit in the back, talk till 5 a.m.
Yep.
Easy.
Many times.
Yeah.
And looking forward to many more. And, you know, thank you for being here, for doing this.
Yeah.
And, you know, thank you for what you're bringing to your life and music.
Yeah. And vice versa. Appreciate everything.
Right
all
on.
The support. Appreciate the city. Yeah. Shout out Paula's Donuts because I'm hungry. We're here.
That's so Buffalo. All right. Well, Declan Miers, thank you. And
for sure.
And we'll do this again sometime.
That sounds great. Looking forward to it. Yes, sir.